When I was first diagnosed with RA, which is rheumatoid disease or rheumatoid arthritis, it's an autoimmune disease that attacks the joints, and it can actually attack organs such as the lining of the heart, the lungs, it can attack blood vessels. It took a while for me to be diagnosed, and I knew something was wrong for, I'm going to say, at least 2 years, if not a little bit more. Something just felt off. But I would have blood work done, I would go in, everything would seem perfectly fine. Long story short, it took about a full year for labs to actually come back that reflected what was happening in my body, because essentially it sounds terrible, but I needed to be in a full blown flare up for everything to be showing up, all of the autoimmune markers to be showing up in my lab serum work. So you may have had the same experience, maybe not with autoimmune, but you know something's off. You're having labs done, you're having all these tests done, and maybe they're not showing anything, and it's frustrating because you know your body, you know something's off. And this is going to be something we dive into today. Today, I have with me Sydney Torres. She is a former certified nursing assistant of 6 years. And Sydney went from working in the ER, the ICU, and medical surgery to starting her own virtual health clinic, Balance Health Now. After dealing with her own health challenges and bouncing from doctor to doctor, boy, do a lot of us go through that, only to be told, hey, your labs are normal, she decided to take back her health and to take matters into her own hands. So now she is a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and blood work specialist known as the health detective. Love it. She helps women who have been ignored and dismissed by conventional medicine to find the underlying root cause of their health issue by running the right types of functional lab tests and interpreting blood work. Sydney, welcome to the show.
Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for having me today.
I want to dive a little bit. Well, I want to go into all the things that you do, and how you get to the root cause. But what brought you here? I kind of touched on it a little bit as I was reading your intro, but what exactly was happening that made you just change directions and create a new path?
Yeah, it all actually just started with my hair, actually. My hair just, I was standing in front of the mirror, like I'll never forget this. I was standing in front of the mirror, and right along on both sides, right on the edge of my hairline, it was completely bald. And I was just like, what's going on? What's going on? Like I went into like code red. And so it started with my hair, and then over time, I started to get like these little bald spots all over my hair. And I went to the doctor. I made that appointment like when I first saw that. And obviously, the doctor did the blood labs. That was like the first thing he did. I waited like 2 weeks for the results. They came back and he said, "Oh, yeah, everything is normal. Nothing is wrong. I know this dermatologist. Why don't you go and check her out?" So I went to the dermatologist, and she had no answers. She had no solutions. Her solution was I could write you a prescription for some hair cream. And I knew I did not want to go down that path. And over time, I just started to develop more and more symptoms. So I started to develop like severe digestion issues. Come to find out, I had SIBO, I had H. pylori, my hormones were just a hot mess. My estrogen was estrogen dominance. So I literally had this shopping list, and I saw so many doctors, I saw so many specialists, and each and every time nothing's wrong, everything is normal. And I was miserable. Here it is, I'm a wife, I've got two small kids, I'm feeling horrible. And there was actually one point where I literally felt like I wasn't gonna make it. And I said, I've got to make it for my kids. I want to see them grow up. I want to see them get married. So I decided, you know what? I'm smart. I can do this. I am going to figure this out. So that's what I did. I discovered the world of functional medicine, and that literally, it changed my life. I went to FDN, it's like a functional school, and I was my first client. We ran the functional test on ourselves. So it was just such a game changer to see these different labs and see, oh my gosh, my hormones and my digestion and my immune function and all of these different things that were really missed by traditional healthcare. So I was just able to, between like the blood labs, I took a course on how to read blood labs from a functional point of view. So between the blood labs and the functional testing, I think it's just such a great combination because it really gives you a picture of what's going on in the body. It lets you know where the dysfunction is. And then we can work on restoring everything. And then you get back to feeling good and living the life that you deserve.
Love it so much. And getting to the root cause, I mean, that's really one of the main differences between the functional medicine approach is rather than saying, well, here's a medication, here's an injection, here's whatever, or a pill. It's getting to that root cause. And I'm definitely not denying the importance of Western medicine. I think it all has a place. I think functional, Western, and in fact, in my perfect view, we would all be working together and taking the best parts of all of this to help the patient.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. And, this is something that I saw working in the hospital. I saw this so many times, where people would come in and they're not feeling well and they have been told, oh, your labs are normal. We called this, like when patients would come in over and over again for the exact same thing, we called this the revolving door because, like we were just talking about, the doctor is only looking at blood labs from a uh, just to diagnose disease. Whereas on the functional side, we are looking at it through the lens of, okay, we're looking at patterns. We're looking for like those subtle changes in the body's physiology. And we are able to make like course correction before it has a chance to develop into something that nobody wants to deal with.
Mm. Now, what do you do when you get, for lack of a better word or words, I'm going to say a hard case because there's always the outliers. Because I work with women on nutrition, weight loss, fat loss, those types of things, maximizing energy, making that transition into menopause. And I have found, I've done this long enough, and I'm sure you have too, that you have a protocol, you notice certain trends, but then you'll get that individual that is, they're an outlier. They're not responding the way you would expect them to respond. So they're starting the hormone replacement therapy, but not responding maybe in the way that is expected. How do you handle those more difficult circumstances and cases?
Right. Well, starting off, I always like to, like I always start with the basics, looking at the blood work, running like foundational functional tests. And if we go through a protocol, let's say the protocol is a 90-day protocol. The person goes through that, they're doing everything right. They've got their food dialed in, they're sleeping, they're having adequate body movement. If they're doing all these things and they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm still feeling bad, that is an opportunity to run further testing. So when those people are outliers, let's look into heavy metals. Let's look into maybe they have parasites, maybe they have mold toxicity. So those are usually factors like the molds, the parasites, and the heavy metals. Those could really, really prevent somebody from really having that true restorative healing. But I never like to start off like, oh, we've got to run this mold test. We got to do this heavy metals test. It's like, No, 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 no. We're not going to start there. Just let's just start at the basics and get everything in order. And I really like to prepare the body because when you think about it, our cells are the ground floor. So if our cells are not functioning properly, then how can we expect everything above that to function properly? So I really just really like to focus with, making sure the cells are functioning properly, making sure they're eating the adequate food because food has nutrients in it, and our nutrients are responsible for so many different functions. You've got like the magnesium and the zincs and the vitamin D's that are just really vital for the body to function. Because if we're not giving our body the correct ingredients, then our bodies cannot do the job. And then we end up with all sorts of conditions from A to Z.
Mm. I really love that you went into the heavy metals because that's something I'm seeing more and more of. Having women come to me that they're in the middle of a detox protocol, which can be really challenging. And then a lot of times they go through the whole protocol, but then there's kind of lingering consequences to this exposure. What do you see with that when you're seeing people with heavy metals? Like how is it presenting? What symptoms are they having? Is it weight gain, weight loss resistance, sleep? What do you see there?
Yeah, it can show up in so many different ways because actually I suffered from heavy metals and it's actually something I'm still currently working on. I did a test on myself and oh my gosh, Carl, let me tell you, my heavy metals were literally my doctor, my functional doctor. She's like, oh my gosh, Sydney. Okay, so when you're looking at the results, like there's like a graph, my levels were literally going off of the graph, from lead to mercury to uranium to aluminum, like everything. It was just horrible. But the way like I presented a lot of things, just getting really bad headaches in the back of my head is something I noticed. Another thing is just I would get like these weird aches and pains, and even sometimes my teeth, like my actual teeth, would hurt. So everybody is going to present different, um, but what I would say to someone that thinks that they have heavy metal toxicity is don't forget about your liver because there's so many people out there with Dr. Google. I love Dr. Google. I think it's great, but you just have to use it in a correct way. You just have to use it to get the information. Never use it to sit there and try to self-diagnose. So I'm seeing a lot of people going to Google and saying, oh my gosh, I've got to do this detox. And with social media, there's a lot of health influencers out there that are saying, oh yeah, I just did a detox with juice or a water fast, or, there's so many different things out there. But one of the things that I see when I'm talking to people is they're forgetting that they have to start with the basics. They're forgetting that they have to make sure that all of their detox pathways are clear. So if somebody is doing let's say, like you said, a heavy metal protocol, and time passes on and they're not seeing results, it's probably because you did not start correctly. There's an order of operation when it comes to healing. And it's making sure, one of the things is making sure that all of those pathways are clear. Are you pooping every day? 1 to 2 times a day? If you're not, then all of that toxins, it cannot get out. How is your liver? If your liver is backed up and congested and sluggish, the detox is not going to happen, and you are just going to recirculate everything, and you're just going to feel horrible. Are you drinking enough water? Are your cells are your cells clear? Are they functioning? Do they have enough energy? Because if the cells don't have enough energy, then nothing in the body is going to get cleared out.
Mm. It's interesting too to note that there's been a lot of talk about how the fat cells will our bodies try to protect us. So rather than having these toxins circulating through the body is scooping them up, and I'm not using proper terms here. It's Carol terms, scooping them up and putting them in the fat cells. But then you get caught in this circular pattern, or this is what I've seen, where they go to start to lose the weight, but then this detoxification issue or the liver, it hasn't been addressed. So then they're regaining the weight and then more, scooping it back up into the blood cell, or excuse me, the fat cells, because that's what our body wants to keep us safe, get those things from, circulating through the body. And there's even been some talk that the show The Biggest Loser, that may have been part of the regain. I'm not sure about that. But what are your thoughts on the obesogens and some of these toxins that can actually cause us to retain and hold on to body fat?
Yeah, I would say, the body is, I love the body, and I think it just has such an innate intelligence. And the reason that it may be holding on to, like those fat cells and toxins, it's to protect us. And I think a lot of times we just look at it from that viewpoint of, oh my gosh, I'm gaining weight around the middle, or oh, I just want to detox and clear these heavy metals out of my body. But stop for a second and think about it, and actually thank your body for doing this, because your body is protecting you. And I think there is a way to do it. Like once like I always tell my clients, your body is like a bank. We have to add and make that bank account larger, so now your body has enough energy to innately do what it knows how to do. And once we have everything in order, then it's naturally just going to release the weight and those fat cells and the toxins and everything else. So I would just say making sure that you just listen to your body and don't be so hard if you're gaining weight around the middle, or if something is not working out the way you want, because we always have our own plan, but our bodies know best. So I would say trust your body. Trust your body. It will never do you wrong, but we have to do right by it by giving it all the essential vitamins and lifestyle and all of that good stuff that it needs.
Mm. Yeah, you had talked earlier about preparing the body before you go into these protocols. And I would even argue if somebody has a fat loss goal, nothing wrong with that if that's their goal. They want to lose weight, they want to look better, feel better. But I almost feel like, yeah, you need to have that same preparation before you go into any kind of, don't really like the word diet, but diet or protocol or nutrition protocol, rather than jumping right in.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because now people are going to be like, oh, okay, there is an order of operation, and the order of operation is starting with the basics. Because if you're at A and that person tries to jump and start with like S, then you're not going to get the results that you want. And then you're going to swear up and down like, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, functional medicine is hocus pocus, when really it's such a beautiful thing.
And it's never just one thing. And I think that's really hard for all of us, but I think it's especially hard for women because I know coming to me, they're often looking for the culprit. What's the culprit? Am I eating the wrong foods? Is it the gluten? Is it the seed oils? Is it the environment? Is it this toxin? Is it is it hormone replacement? What do I need? And it's everything. I know when I changed things and I got the results that I got, it was one thing at a time. It was okay, strength training, okay, nutrition, okay, I'm going to see somebody about my hormones, about my gut health. And I just have gradually added on these elements over time. And it's all of the things, it's every single one of those things. And I'm sure you've seen that too, where people come and they're frustrated and they're hoping for that one answer. And sometimes it's just not that simple.
Yeah, everybody is looking for that magic bullet, that quick fix. And a lot of times, what I see is somebody will come to me, like, for example, maybe like with thyroid, and they are just so focused on, I gotta fix my thyroid, I gotta fix it, and that's the only thing that they're focused on. And then I give them a gentle reminder and explain to them, like, hey, you just cannot make the thyroid or your hormones or your digestion, we just can't make it the target, because everything in the body works together. It's like our body is one big orchestra. So if your hormones are playing the violin and it's out of tune, then everybody else in the in the orchestra is going to have that domino effect. Everything is going to be out of tune. So just really stopping and realizing that the body doesn't work in individualized parts. The body works together. So yeah, definitely not focusing on one thing. And that's something that I had to realize when I was, before I learned about like functional medicine. That is something I got caught up in. I was just so hyper focused on like my hair. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do my hair, my hair, my hair. I got to grow it back. What can I do? And then it was, like my digestion issues. And I was just like so hyper focused on that. And then once I learned about the world of functional medicine, I realized like, oh my gosh, you mean to tell me everything works together? You mean to tell me if I have low stomach acid, then I'm not going to be able to break down the protein I eat, and the gut brain connection. And I just started making all these like connections, and like the light bulb went on. So yeah, I think that's just so important to really get out of that mindset and stop focusing on one individual part of your body, and just
Mm.
realize that when it comes to like symptoms, like our symptoms are the body's way of saying, hey, you know what, something's not right here. So just really having like that body awareness is something I realized as well.
You're really spot on with that. And talking about the hair, because I remember that's the first time I kind of knew something was amiss. And I didn't notice it like spots in the mirror or hair in my hairbrush. We had taken professional photos for the studio that I worked at. And this has been, oh my goodness, like 13 years ago. And I was looking through the photos, like they had come back to me, and I was, had them up on my computer, and I'm like, when did my hair start looking like straw and so thin? I didn't have balding spots, but it was thin and it was so incredibly dry. And then I was noticing how incredibly dry because you get these professional photos and everything's like blown up at you. And that was a wake up call, because I'm going, okay, this isn't just about my hair. Something's making it something is making it do this. Now, as it turned out in my case, adding in the hormone replacement therapy helped a lot with the skin and the hair, and dialing in the nutrition helped with that as well. But yeah, our body does give us warning signs. Now, something I hear a lot of is people don't have the monetary means to go have testing done, and functional medicine testing, doctors, a lot of times it's out of pocket. I pay out of pocket for a good lot of the testing. I have tests through Boston Heart, all kinds of different tests I have with my nurse practitioner, and I have to pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket for a lot of this stuff that my insurance doesn't cover. So you've got somebody, because I get these too, where they're like, I can't go to this practitioner, but I'll go to my regular family practice doctor or OBGYN and have labs done. And then I see the labs and there's so many missing pieces. It's so simplistic that it's like I can't tell what's going on from this. What advice would you give somebody? I mean, can they go to their doctor and say, can I run some of these thyroid tests, for example?
Yeah, you actually, I know how expensive functional testing can be. Like, it can add up so quickly. So I get that. I understand, especially with the state of the economy. We're going through a recession and all this. But what I would recommend to somebody who is not feeling well and wants to have testing is, number one, have your doctor run like blood labs. Hopefully, you have insurance, and it should, like, most of the markers should be covered. So that could be a really good basic, let me get an overview of what's going on. And then another thing I would suggest, like, say you don't have insurance and you're not feeling well, I would always recommend start with diet. Diet could move the needle so drastically in how you are feeling, because the foods that we put in our mouth, it's truly, food is truly medicine, and just eating the right foods, like the whole foods, making sure every time you sit down, you have like the protein, you have the fiber, you have the fat, making sure you really limit those processed foods and reducing your alcohol. And if the body is getting, the proteins, the fibers, the fats, and you're getting all like those good nutrients in order, then you're naturally gonna feel better. Because I was working with somebody, and she was on a limited budget, and I said, you know what, okay, we are going to do the blood work. We did like a HTMA, a hair tissue mineral analysis, and through a thorough health history, I'm telling you, you can gain so much information. Like, when I'm working with clients, I have it's a form. It's got like, I want to say, a lot of questions. It's probably like over 200 questions. And
Wow.
the questions are broken down by body system, which is pretty cool. So the
Mm.
way they answer these questions really lets me dial in, like, okay, they're having a problem with their immune or their hormone system. And then also, I have another form that they have to fill out. It's a lifestyle form. So this gives me more information on it. Asks where you live. Do you live in the city? Do you live on a farm? Do you live near a golf course where they're spraying chemicals? It just gets really, really, it's uber detailed. So just between those two health history forms, it can give a practitioner a lot of good information. And this is without the blood test, without the functional testing. Listening to the person's story and getting that history can tell you a lot. And just by that information, now I'm able to like guide this person. We have a really, really good starting place. So if you cannot afford functional testing, or maybe your doctor insurance is not covering it, there's options. I would definitely say a good practitioner will do a very, very detailed health history, and from there they could absolutely give you recommendations, and you could absolutely start feeling better.
Mm. I love the idea of starting with the symptoms. I know that's where my CNP, my nurse practitioner, started with me. I'm still with her after, oh goodness, 12 years, I think. And she started with, okay, what symptoms are you having? She had a questionnaire. It was more based around hormones. And then from there, we added in some different supplements, and we ran some different testing. But she didn't jump right into the testing. She collected that information on the front end, so then she would know which direction, so that we weren't just randomly running labs that maybe didn't pertain to me and I didn't need. So I love that approach. Now you're working with primarily women, I'm assuming. Do you have
Yes.
any men that come to you, or is it just all women?
No, no men. The only man have been like my husband and family members. So
I know that
yeah,
feeling.
yeah,
I,
no, no men.
I'm the same way. I work with women, but I've helped my husband over the years with what he needs help with in the gym and whatnot. So I get that. But what's the typical scenario you're seeing? Because I know that when women come to me, there are some typical pain points that I see over and over again. Typically, it's that the belly fat is a big, big one. Like, okay, I never used to have this in my 30s. Now I've got this. Maybe they're having hot flashes. Weight loss resistance is huge. What are you seeing women come to you with?
Yeah, I'm seeing basically the same things that you're seeing. A lot of women come to me. They're extremely tired. They are unable to lose weight, um, even though they're eating like the same amount of calories. They're just kind of like on that hormone roller coaster. They're just kind of going through that perimenopause transition. So sleeping is like a really big issue. I go to sleep and then I wake up, or I can't go to sleep, or my energy levels, I wake up feeling exhausted even though I just slept 8 hours. So, yeah, these are the things that I'm absolutely seeing more and more.
Mm. Midlife changes so many things for women starting in the 40s. I mean, depending on the woman, for me, I really woke up to it. I know it was starting prior, but I really became aware, like I'm going to say 45 or so, where I went, something's really off. Like I would have brain fog, I would be fatigued, I felt like I needed a nap every day. Sleep was suffering. And then the gut changes. The brain changes. So many things. I am astounded. I mean, I just recently dove into how heart rate variance drops down with perimenopause and menopause. And of course, we want that number to be higher because it shows resilience. It shows that we're recovering, that we're adapting to our environment, and it's a sign of longevity. So I mean, everything from our heart rate to our gut health to our brain health is being changed.
It is. And you know what? It is just not fun at all because I'm actually going through perimenopause. And let
Mm,
me tell you, it, whew, it's been rough, especially like the last 3 months on me have been absolutely rough. And I am just doing everything in my arsenal that I have. But I know that I could just tell like my estrogen has just totally just dropped. So I've made like an appointment for myself, but it's a 3 month wait. So I won't be seen until October.
mm,
But yeah, just having a really good toolbox, and just I've just been like all the advice that I give to my clients, I've absolutely been doing it myself. I've been like making sure I get the right sleep, and really making sure like my diet is on point, making sure that I know you and I recorded a podcast on like menopause and weight training. And this is something you'd be so proud of me, Carol. This is something that I started doing. It's just like
yay.
really lifting weights and just making sure like I've got like that muscle mass, and making sure that I hit that protein, like 1 pound per body weight. So I'm striving for like 125 grams of protein
Mhm.
a day. And it truly, it makes a difference. It really makes a difference.
I'm so excited to hear that. As you were talking, a little off the subject, but my brother's he became a vegetarian when he was, I think it was 18, 19, right around in there. He's in his 70s, early 70s. And then he went to vegan. And this isn't a plug for people to change their diet, but he just recently read a book that I gave him by Dr. Gabriel Lyons, and I didn't know what the effect would be, but he came back and he said, I've decided I'm going to incorporate some animal protein because I'm not getting enough protein at this age. He was starting to have some bone loss. Yes, men can get bone loss too. Not as strong in his workouts, difficult to put on muscle. And he started this about the time I had my back surgery, so 5 weeks. And he just, He looks different, he feels different, his energy levels. And once again, it's not a plug to, okay, you're a vegan, go over to this diet. It's more of an observation where I went, wow. And he made this huge change in his 70s. So I'm excited when I hear you talking about, okay, I'm going to strength train, I'm going to get that protein because it does make a difference. And I will encourage you, menopause to me was smoother than the whole perimenopause ride. That was like, how long is this bus ride going to go on for around these curves, down these hills, into these valleys? And yes, menopause, you have the aftermath of, okay, maybe I need some hormone replacement therapy. Everything's tanked. Need to address my sleep, all of those things. But you don't have those ups and downs. I just really want to encourage you there.
Yeah, thank you. And like going back to the vegetarian, I used to be a vegetarian, and then I went from vegetarian to being a vegan, and then I just had the mindset like, oh, I got to do better, I got to be healthier. Then I did the raw vegan lifestyle. I did
Mm.
that for like 4 years, and let me tell you, looking back in retrospect, I was not getting nutrition, like my nutrients. I was not getting like the adequate protein. And I was a hot mess. And that was just really adding to my body being in such a deficit. And I remember my doctor telling me, she's like, you know what, Sydney, I really suggest you incorporate some animal protein. And I was so against it, like so against it. Like nobody could convince me otherwise. And then it wasn't until one day I was about to get into the shower. And for some reason, I just looked, I was undressed. I looked at myself and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't look right. Like Carol, I was so skinny. Like my chest cavity was literally, it was caved in. You could
Mm.
see my bones and everything. I was 110 pounds. And I'm like, okay, that scared me. That moment looking at myself, it scared me so bad. I said, I've got to make a change. If I don't, something horrible is going to happen to me. And then I slowly incorporated the animal protein, and it was rough. Like I sat there, I could remember I started with, I went to Sprouts and I got some organic broth, bone broth, and I started with that. And I'm just like sitting there eating the broth with a spoon, just like tears coming down. So I could totally relate to those people that live that lifestyle. And it's just a really hard transition.
It is a hard transition. I was so shocked when he made it after all these decades. I was really astounded. I didn't know where it would go when I gave him the book, but I was happy that he feels better and it is doing something that's working for his body. But I think it's interesting to note that we try these things and it's okay. I have a colleague and she always, it's a Dr. Tara Gunther, and she always talks about, well, let's get curious. Let's get curious and try this or that. And she'll be talking about nutrition or exercise or whatever. And just trying things to see how you respond. And sometimes we have to go through these kind of hard times and hard transitions because we have tried something that we think it's going to be good. For me, it was the excessive amounts of cardio and thinking, oh, wow, I'm doing something great. I'm going to live forever doing this cardio and running marathons and doing 100-mile bike rides. And then, just like you, looking in the mirror, and I went, oh, what happened to my body? All the muscle gone, super skinny, but with a lot of body fat, but skinny. So that kind of skinny fat. So I remember that same kind of feeling that you had in the shower, like, oh, something's got to change. This is not okay.
Exactly, exactly.
So I want to kind of back up because at the beginning of the podcast we were talking about, running from doctor to doctor, and that frustration. Why do you think women in particular get gaslit or can get gaslit? And now two doctors listening, and I've interviewed doctors on here from the functional side, from the traditional allopathic side. So there's no criticism because I think overall most people, most physicians really want to help their patient. I think that the motivation is there, but yet so often women feel like they come with their symptoms, particularly hormonal, and they're not being heard.
Yeah, we definitely, like, I have been gaslit myself. I know I've taken my daughter to the doctor and we have both been gaslit, and it's just like such a horrible feeling not to be taken seriously. And I think maybe one of the reasons is, first of all, I think they're overworked. You know, they have a schedule that is packed and you have to see maybe 20 patients in a day. I actually interviewed a doctor and we had this conversation. And from her point of view, she says that she wants to help the people, but she doesn't have enough time. So it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, you've got hormone issues. Okay, yeah, if it's not like really fitting inside that uh, diagnostic wheelhouse, then it's almost like they gotta blow you off and move on or write you that quick prescription because they don't have the time to sit down with you and get your whole story. Like, hey, what's going on? How long has this been happening? Because when I'm working with clients, we go back to, like, I want to know how you were born. Were you born vaginally or were you born through C-section? Because all of that is going to play into your lifestyle and what's going on with you now. So I would say doctors just not having enough time, doctors not being educated. They're just educated from the viewpoint of looking for disease and diagnosing things, and they're not trained to look for those subtle changes. They're not trained to run stool test or hormone testing. So that's where I think we really need to start to be our own health advocates, and we need to start to take back our own health. And yes, we need modern medicine. I'm not knocking it. Like I did that for like 6 years. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot. I know a lot about it. And just from my perspective, working on that side of the fence, like the conventional side, I would just say these doctors, it's sad to say, but it's not the doctor's fault. I would say it's more of the educational system. They're just not trained properly. So then it all goes back to them not knowing. People like you and I going into the doctor when we're not feeling well and being gaslit because they don't know. So that would be a time to, say, okay, you know what? Thank you. Can you recommend me to somebody else? Or this may be a good time for you to dive into the functional space. Do your own research because nobody's going to care about our health and wellness like you do. And I interviewed a podcast guest last week. His name was Dr. Torkel Farrell.
And yeah, I had him on the show. Yeah.
He's a Norwegian doctor, and he wrote a book called The Pulse Care. And this, I started reading the book because he sent me like a copy of the book, and it's such a fascinating book. And he was telling me everybody in Norwegian is doing like the pulse care. It's basically where you have like the wearables, you have the Aura Ring, you have the Garmin, you have the Whoop. Some people like to use the Apple Watch. So these people are now taking back their health by buying these wearables and tracking their health, especially like the heart rate variability. Mm-hmm. And you could start to really see your stress levels. And I just think it's amazing. So us doing little things like that, maybe doing the wearables as well as ordering our own blood labs too. I know a lot of times when I work with people, they get a lot of pushback from their doctor where they'll come with a list and they're like, oh, you know what, could you run these labs? And the doctor will just flat out say no. And I know I've had that happen to me so many times. I go in there with my little index card and I'm like, boop, here you go. Could you order this? They look at it, and I had one doctor look at it, and she's like, literally, she had a pen in her hand, and she's like, unimportant, unimportant, and she's like crossing them off.
Oh,
And I'm like, ooh, what?
oh
And I said,
man.
especially, and these were the thyroid markers, okay? She was just trying to tell me, oh, we just need TSH. We don't need anything else. But anyway, I just like now that people are taking back their own power by going to these direct to consumer labs. Like Quest has one, I think it's called like Quest on Demand. Uh, what's the other one? LabCorp,
Yes,
Ulta
we.
Labs.
Mm-hmm,
Ulta Labs
mm-hmm.
is another one. So you can just go online, you can order your own blood labs. But the only thing I would say is when you get your results back, usually the doctor will read them, but it's going to be a conventionally trained doctor. So they're not going to look at it from like that functional viewpoint where, like, okay, where are the imbalances, where are the subtle changes. So I would just say you could do that, but just keep that in the forefront of your mind.
I was thinking as you were talking, such a random thought came into my head, but how cool if you did some kind of little master class, teaching women how to kind of look at their, not read or interpret or their lab work, but a lot of times you do, you see it, it's very clear. And I know I've learned to go, okay, I'm on the high end of normal or the low end of normal. And I've learned to kind of read between the lines, and then I'll go ask my nurse practitioner, this was really on the low end of normal. Should I be worried about this? Should this be higher? And learning to even look at get your labs. A lot of times we go to the doctor. I remember coming away, the doctor had all the information on his or her clipboard. I had nothing. Melissa, that's my nurse practitioner, she makes sure I leave with everything in my hands. I leave with a copy of my own lab work. So I'll get home even after she's talked about it with me, and I'll go all the way back through. So I think that is, once again, going back to being your own advocate, and women just not being, I think it's changing, but I'm going to be 63 soon. And what I remember growing up is you did not question authority. You did not question medical authority. You did not question any authority for that matter. And doctors weren't. We were taught, okay, whatever that, and it was always a man, whatever that man says, that's it. No room for anything else. And so I think taking back that power is so important.
I 100% agree. And I actually, once a month, I teach live blood lab workshops. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, I love it because when it comes to blood labs, I geek out about it. I love the numbers. I always say the numbers do not lie. And a lot of people already have their blood labs, you
Hmm.
know? So it's just a really easy entry point. So what I do is I'll just take like a set of markers each month and we'll just learn about those blood markers. People will show up, we'll show up on Zoom and they'll have their blood labs. And, like I do the educational part, like, okay, this is what this is responsible for. The optimal ranges are between this and this. And then, they go through it. And if they have questions, I'm there to answer it. And it's fun and
Ooh,
it's great.
love it.
I love it.
I love it because I was just thinking it would be so great if you did a class like that. Is that something that's open for people to join, or do they need to be in a program, or how does that work?
No, I just on my website, you could just sign up to be on the wait list. And when I'm about to go live, I send out an email.
Ooh, that's such good information. I love anything that allows women. I don't like using the word empowerment, it's definitely overused, but just feeling like, yeah, I have control. This is my body. I'm the CEO of my body. Let me learn everything I can. I mean, we buy a new vehicle. What do? We set up our oil changes. We learn everything in that car, how it works, where we take it, and then we will hand over our own body to someone else and not ask the questions or have the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And, I agree where we just need to be more mindful and just really pay attention, and don't let somebody else dictate how your life is going to be. How many times have you've heard, oh, well, my doctor said it's going to be this way, and they just accept that as truth when they have the power, they can do something about it. And just, oh, that's just something like I hear so many stories of, oh, well, my doctor said it's going to be this way for the rest of my life.
That's a
No,
big
it's
one.
not. Like a great example is, I remember, like, my mom, she just turned 74. When she was about maybe her mid 60s, she went and she got her yearly blood draw done, and the doctor, came back with the results, and the doctor's like, oh my gosh, your blood sugar is in the 300s. And he wrote her a prescription for metformin. So my mom calls me and she's like, my blood sugar, it was in the 300s. I'm taking metformin. And my mom knew that she didn't want to be on metformin. And the doctor told her, oh, you are going to be on metformin. This is probably going to be like the rest of your life thing. You know what? Here's a little handout of don't eat sugar, don't eat bread, don't eat pasta. Like, that was it. So anyway, she made the decision in that very moment that that was not going to be the rest of her life. So when we were having the conversation, she's like, you know what, Sydney, I am going to turn this around. And that woman did. Within 3 months,
Wow.
she went back to the doctor. She changed her lifestyle. She started eating clean, whole foods. She signed up for Pilates. She signed up for, I'm not sure what it's called, but she goes to this person and they stretch her out for like an hour. So she does like the stretching thing, and she's doing like all these different things. She started like doing yoga, and the doctor reran the blood labs, looked at the glucose, and it came down. And her doctor said, oh my gosh, I've never seen numbers this great. And how did you do this so quickly? So this is just like such a great story, such a great message. If your doctor tells you something, take it in, say, okay. And then remember, you have the choice. You have the choice to do something about it, or you have the choice to accept what that doctor says and accept that as your truth.
Beautiful. Lifestyle is so powerful. Lifestyle medicine and what we can do with nutrition and movement and exercise and mindset, even, and all of the things to turn it around. And for her to be in her 70s, really the age my brother is, making some changes too. And it's amazing to see what can happen in your 70s, your mid 70s, when we've been taught, oh, it's too late. And it's never too late. So absolutely love that, Sydney. Now, I want to be respectful of your time as we start to wrap up. First of all, was there anything I didn't touch on with you or we didn't touch on together that you'd like the listeners to know? And secondly, how can they find out more about you, work with you, and follow you?
I would just say for everybody listening, if you don't feel well, if you have been told everything is normal, if you feel like I am out of options, I'm going to feel like this the rest of my life, I am here to say, no, you do not have to feel like this the rest of your life. There are so many beautiful healing modalities. I know that, Carol, your podcast is great, and you've interviewed so many wonderful people. So just number one, finding what modality works for you, because what works for me may not work for Carol or anybody else. So you just gotta find like your right combination with your body, like what works, what doesn't work. So that is what I would say. The best place to find me is I'm on Instagram at Balance Health Now. You can go to my website, Balance Health Now, if you want to sign up to be part of the live Blood Labs workshop. And then email is always a really good way, info@balancehealthnow.com. And I just want to say thank you so much, Carol, just for having this conversation. I've like truly enjoyed myself.
Oh, thank you, Sydney, so much for being on the show. It's been fun to unpack all of this, and I know that those who are listening are going to glean so much value from this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.